Hello, and welcome to the studio. If you're new here, it's lovely to have you. My name is Nora, and I'm the girl behind Studio Nora. If you visited the studio before, welcome back. Chaos is still reigning. I would like to take some time today to talk to you about the following things. Of course, I'm going to talk about the works in progress and finished objects and some acquisitions, but I also would like to spend some time on the compare and despair thing I've been going through recently. And I would like to end with talking about a novel that I've been reading, a non-fiction novel which is called The Shepherd's Life. And I think it's really applicable to both our love and interest in yarn, wool, sheep, but there's also this thing that the author writes down that really struck me. Before I get into all of that, I am wearing the, what's it called? Jackson sweater from Helen's Closet Patterns. It's a bit of a tongue twister for me, really. In this brushed sweat. It's nice and green with sort of matching ribbing. I have noticed that actually the fabric itself, so the sweater fabric or the sweats is, the coloring is slightly changing from the ribbing, but that's fine. It's lovely. It has a little dropped shoulder, and even with my quite wide shoulders, I like it. I didn't think I would, because I think that my shoulders appear broad enough on their own, but I think the drop shoulder is really nice. And I did add a little label. Let me see if I can show you. It says, well, I don't think you can read it, but it says you can't buy this. And in the back there's also a KDM machine label, but it has some foul language on it, so I won't share that. Alright, so the first thing, oh wait, no, I'm drinking some tea. I hope you have a beverage of choice with you as well. This is one of my favorite cups. I bought it in the shop. I think it's machine turned, but yeah, I really like it. I really like big mugs that I can warm my cold hands to. And I'm just drinking a herbal infusion. I like to drink loose leaf tea, but with the kitchen renovation and the renovation of the entire house, it has been a bit difficult to do that. Just because of I don't know where the loose leaf tea is in which box. So I've been drinking bags again. Alright, so compare and despair, also known as a comparison trap. I have been watching lots of podcasters, knitting podcasters, and just sewing podcasters, of people who share all the things they made in 2021. I knit 50 sweaters. I seriously saw somebody who knit 50 sweaters. That's bonkers. Or I made 72 pairs of socks, and I think that's great. All the more power to you. You've been super productive. Good job. But I haven't been that productive. I made 2 sweaters last year and 2 pairs of socks. No, that's a lie. No pairs of socks, because I didn't knit socks all of last year. Oh, that's not true. I made 1 pair of socks for myself. But I haven't been that productive, and I was really falling into the comparison trap, or as Maisie Hill from the Period Power podcast likes to call it, compare and despair, because I was feeling pretty bad about myself. I haven't been this productive, something is wrong with me, because these people, they knit so much and they have a podcast and they have their day jobs and a family and they manage to knit this much. That must mean that I'm doing something wrong. And then luckily, after a few days, I snapped myself out of it, because everybody's life is different. Everybody enjoys knitting in a different way. I very much like to keep my hands busy with some knitting, but it doesn't mean that I'm a very fast knitter, and it doesn't mean that I produce a lot, and that's fine. Actually, it's really good, because I've been trying to focus on making sustainable choices for my wardrobe, not just making for the making of it. I went through a phase of making for the making when I just started to sew, and it felt like the world was my oyster and I could sew anything I wanted to, which is true. I mean, I made 2 pairs of jeans, actually wearing one of the pairs. Let me show you. These are my Dawn jeans. They're just high-waisted pants, and I made a little embroidery on the bum. This one, and that one too. There's some lavender, and I really like those jeans. But at one point I was making so much and I kind of felt overwhelmed, so I stopped, and from now on I only make things when I really want to. So, you know, the same with knitting. It's fine if you don't produce that much. And I just wanted to tell you that if you have been battling the same feelings of compare and despair, I feel you, but we don't have to, because everybody's different, and that's fine. So that was my little rant. I often have these rants also to my students. They may not always appreciate them, but I hope that I make a little bit of an impact on any topic that, you know, I get a little worked up over. All right, so back to, you know, the knitting podcast. I would like to share my finished objects. I have 2. Well, 3, but one is a pair of socks. So the first one you have seen before, and it is the Spiritual Guardian Cowl. This is it all finished. It's in this nice moss green from Knitting for Olive, and it is lovely. I really like it. I'm not going to wear it because my hair is behaving itself, and if I put this on, my hair will explode probably, so I'm not going to risk it, but it's lovely. I made the widest and longest size, so I think it's the snuggly long version, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. I've never knit something with mohair for myself, and I'm very excited to wear it. I think the weather, although it's a quite mild winter, I think it'd still be nice to have around my neck. So that's my first finished objects. So it's Knitting for Olive Fine Merino and Knitting for Olive Mohair Silk in the color Moss Green. Alright, that's one. My other finished object, I'm going to put this in a safe space. You are balanced, by the way, on my tiny tripod, on my drawing pencil box, on a very thick book, The Principles of Knitting. I think I need to get like a different setup because it's a little precarious. Alright, so my second finished object are the Rustic cable sweaters by Inga Skeie from Knitting Traditions, and these are them. You saw them last week if you watched that. They're a bit shorter than the pattern recommends, but I didn't read it well enough. So they're a bit shorter, and that's fine. They still stick out of my Dr. Martin boots, and that's really all I want. Of course, I have 2. And they have this beautiful cable, 3 cables up front, and the middle one is a braid, which is really nice, And yeah, it's the second time I'm doing cables, because the first time is a spiritual guardian cowl, but the first time doing them on socks. I haven't worn them yet because I wanted them to be nice and pristine for the podcast. I don't know, yeah, it's a bit cheating because I believe in using the items you made, but for, you know, aesthetic reasons, you get to see them unworn. They do have a rounded toe on the toe, but construction was fine. But I think for my next pair I'm going to go back to the standard square toe. I don't know if it's called like that, but the one where you end up with 14 stitches on each needle and you Kitchener stitch them, because that fits my feet a little better, because I have quite square toes. So I think that just works with my feet a little better. A sneaky peek of an acquisition, because I got these lovely sock blockers. I have, these are the small ones, and I had medium ones because those are for size 38 to 41 European, and I am a 39. But I'm mostly a 39 because I have quite wide feet, not because I have the length of foot that fits with a 39, if you get my drift. And I noticed that the sock blockers just kind of blocked them too long for me. So I ordered these from an Etsy shop, which I will pop in the screen down here, from Poland, and they're just lovely. They're really smooth. I think they're laser cuts. Yeah, and they're great, and they have little bees, which is really nice, I think. So these are my finished objects. The finished object from last podcast, the superwash disaster, is still in its disaster state. Here it is, still too long. My mum put the swatch in the dryer and it did shrink, but on 10 centimeters it only shrunk 1 stitch, and width wise it only shrunk half a stitch. So I don't know if it's worth putting the sweater in a dryer for. So what I'm going to do is, our kitchen renovation is almost complete and we have hot water in our oh, what do you call that, wash basin? No, that's not what you call it. I forgot the word, but the place where you do the dishes. And we have this lovely big sink. It's a kitchen sink. We have a lovely big kitchen sink now. It's really farmhousey. I might show you the process of me trying to shrink this sweater either at the end of this podcast or next time. But I'm going to soak it in very warm, possibly hot water, and then kind of like squish block it into submission, hopefully, because it's mostly the arm's eye, as I talked about last time. So I'll try to squish that in, and then I might just take a bit of length of the sleeves and the body. But I think the lesson that I've learned from this sweater is that I love knitting for my husband. This is the second item I've knit. I've knit him a pair of socks before. Great experience. He loves wearing them. He takes really good care of it. And I love making him the sweater. However, if he wants anything else, that's fine. But it can't be superwash. That's the one rule. I don't care if he wants a full long johns knitted pattern. Great. But you're gonna have to deal with non-superwash wool. That's just the rule from now. So yeah. The story continues, and hopefully we'll have a happy ending, and if not, we have a lesson learned. Well, the lesson is already learned, but you know. Alright, so those are my finished objects. My works in progress have changed a little bit. I'll talk about the ones that you know of if you watched episode 1 first. So I'm still working on the little Twigs body. Little Twigs pattern is a sweater. pattern from Melody Hoffman or B Mandarins. It's an older pattern, so the sizing is not all that inclusive, I must say, but her new patterns are, and I believe she has plans to update her older patterns as well, because I'm quite broad-chested and I think I fall at the middle or end of the size range that is in the pattern, and even though I'm quite broad, I'm not all that broad, so I think it's good that she's updating them. I've already knit the sleeves. I am on Body Island, but I think I knitted a good 20 centimeters in the last couple weeks since I saw you, so this is where we are. It is in naturally dyed merino DK from Studio Solas, which is one of my favorite yarn shops. It's a Dutch girl living in the Netherlands, just like me, and she naturally dyes wool, and she's very conscious about environmental impact and the sustainability of her products, so that's really nice. But you know, this is a good project during meetings at school, or if I'm attending, if I'm supervising a test. The only thing is, because it's getting quite big now, it's not that, easy to stuff in my bag. So that's my first work in progress. My second work in progress is my Winslow culottes for my granny. Do not tell her that I called her granny. I can call her grandmother, or MA, which is her name, but I was never allowed to call her oma, which is granny in Dutch, because it made her feel old. She's 90 now, so she is old, but yeah, no, I cannot call her granny. But she did request a pair of culottes, so these are them. I believe last time I hadn't started them yet. They're almost finished. They're the Helen's Closet pattern Winslow culottes. I made myself a pair when I just started sewing in kind of like a rust color, and she loves them and she fits them really well. So she wanted a pair of her own, and these are in Merchant and Mills Twill in the colorway Speak Easy. I think that's just lovely. I made one adjustment to the pattern. I made my granny's slash pockets. So these are the slash pockets. On my pair there is just side seam pockets, but they tend to kind of like flap around. So I thought it would be nicer for her if she can just find her pockets easily. They have a invisible zipper, and I would say that, you know, it's not completely invisible, but it's getting there. So this afternoon, it's Saturday today, and on Saturdays I always visit my grandmother and we have tea and discuss the world and what we would do if we were in charge of the world. We have, you know, our world works, no injustice whatsoever. But yeah, the only thing I need to do is hem them. So I'll go by this afternoon, and she can try them on and I can pin them up. And then, yeah, they are done. I will see if she will allow me to either make a little video clip or a photo of her in them. So you can see, and otherwise I'll just maybe next time show a nice picture of them completely finished. Okay, that is the Winslow culottes. Let me hang this sort of here on a plant hanger. It works great. My last work in progress is a new cast on. They're socks, because I really missed having socks on my needles. Yeah, so these are my new work in progress socks. They are in Mondim sock. Well, Mondim is a sock yarn from Retrosaria Rosa Pomar. She's a Portuguese she has a shop and she produces wool, ethically sourced, and she gives a lot of attention to Portuguese wools and specialty breeds. Yeah, so this is the wool, and I love the illustration on them. They're just so funny. That's how I like to wear my socks, like just sticking out of my boots. They are in the colorway 202, and yeah, it's going really quickly. I have been spending lots of time in waiting rooms in a hospital because my skin has been really bad. I've always suffered from, well, not suffered from, I've always, let's phrase this in a nice way, eczema has always been part of my life, but over the last couple months it's gotten really out of control, and the creams that I use don't really work anymore within normal means. My skin was only normal if I used the cream twice a day, which is way too much because it kind of suppresses some vital function of the skin. So we are trying light therapy twice a week. I stand in this right side up tanning box for a couple seconds, 20 seconds. But it means that I spend a lot of time in the waiting room waiting to be called up, and socks are great because you can just stuff them in your bag. And yeah, so I am, it's a vanilla sock, but I'm sort of using the heel from Inga Skeie from Knitting Tradition. So I think she calls it the Morse Hell heel. It's the same heel as in the Rustic cables, but I'm just not using any cables, and I'm going to do a square toe. And for the first time ever, I am using a half twisted rib. So if you look here, this is the twisted rib. So you knit in the back loop of your knit stitches, and you can see the difference with the purl stitches on the inside. So these are the normal untwisted stitches, and these have the twist, and well, as the name says, they have a little extra twist, and I think it looks really nice. And yeah, they're going really quickly. These needles have made all the difference for me, because they're really easy on the hands, because you can kind of manipulate them over a long, like, whoop. I used to play violin, but that's not how you hold a bow. Yeah, but they make it really quick for me because I used to knit on the tiny circulars, and it's nice that you can just go in a continuous loop, but because the needles are so small, it kind of fatigues my hands really quickly, which they do anyways. So yeah, these Chow long needles are really nice. They're 2.25. It's not on this needle, it's the other needle. It's 2.25 millimeter needles, 100 centimeter circulars, and it's going splendidly so far. Yeah, so that is my works in progress. Anything else to add to that? Not really. All right. My intended works in progress still include the Vintersol sweater once I have finished my little twigs, and I have been thinking about making new Yanta overalls. In another episode I'll show you the Yanta overalls that I have now. They are in a green. I like greens and blues, that's my jam. But I have this CUX6 fabric canvas, I think it's called Oriental Garden, and it has like stylized trees and flowers and plants on them, and I was thinking of making a backpack, but I have too many backpacks as is, so I thought, why not make some more Yanta overalls? They're basically dungarees. I love wearing mine now, the ones that I have, so that would be a good addition to my wardrobe, I think. Yeah. Okay, so acquisitions. 2 weeks ago I turned 30, and I went on a little wool buying rampage, I would say, because I decided that I wanted the Mondim yarn, sock yarn. So I was looking for it, and since then I have discovered multiple Dutch shops that carry the yarn, but I couldn't find them for some reason. So I went straight to the source and I did for me, a really big order of yarn from them, because I thought if I'm going to have to pay for shipping, I better make it worth my while. So I got several things. Let's start with, there's a pile here. First, I saw this pattern. It's called Arbusto by Rosa Panamar, and it is a sweater with baubles. And I got the yarn it was designed in, so it's called Brusca, and it is in a color 5C. This yarn is made from the fine wools of Soloia and Portuguese Merino, 2 native sheep breeds from Portugal. So it's 100% wool of 2 varieties, and it's so squishy. And I want to make this sweater. The only thing is, I think that in this pattern the baubles are really big. I've never knitted baubles before, but I imagine that there's a way of making smaller bubbles. So before I start the sweater, which is somewhere in the future, I'm going to research how to make smaller bubbles, because I don't think I would wear it if it had really big bubbles. So that's acquisition 1. I also got a project bag of the yarn, but it's quite small, so it's good for socks, but it's definitely not gonna fit the sweater, but that's fine. That's the first. Then I bought several of these. It's called Mungo. There you go. I have 4 balls of this lovely blue and then 3 of the white, and it is made from recycled wool and cotton, and I think it's like DK weight probably. Let's see, maybe bigger. It's 100 grams is 220 meters. Is that worsted? I will have to look that up. So what I had in my head is I want to make a summery t-shirt with stripes. So blue, white, big stripes, and probably like not really sleeves. Not big sleeves, but just maybe like a little bit. But I haven't found the right pattern for it yet, so if you have any suggestions for this wool or for like a cotton t-shirt, preferably with stripes, let me know. That brings us to the last acquisition. So I went a bit cuckoo with the sock yarns. So you already saw these ones, because those are the socks I'm making right now. But wait, there's more. And I'm not saying I'm going to knit these all in 2022. Probably not. But ta-da! So there's 4 balls. I really like the rust, but it might be really good for like heels and toes and cuffs. And then this one is similar to this one, but what I find really interesting is that, hold on, yarny mess, there's kind of like a swirly stripe going on, and I don't know how it works because I've never dyed yarn. Well, I've dyed yarn but not in stripes or anything, but there's like a continuous swirl and it's really cool. If you know how this works, let me know, because it's magic to me. I hope the swirl picks up again in the leg, but ooh, this one has the same sort. This is color 208, and then this blue is lovely. It's like sky blue. Is 114. The rust is 302, and the green is 308. Isn't it lovely? Oh, it's a bit like overlighted, blown out. I don't know how to fix that. And then, of course, I couldn't resist myself. I also got a little project bag of the Mondim. So yes, those are my acquisitions. I thought maybe next podcast I could show you my advent calendar. I've unpacked all of it, but I haven't started project from it yet. And I thought it might be nice for you to see what's in that. I really enjoyed my advent calendar. Who doesn't love presents, right? And I had one for almost all of December, so that was really nice. To finish off today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about this novel. It is called The Shepherd's Life, A Tale of the Lake District by James Rebanks or Rebanks, not really sure. It looks like this. And it is written by a shepherd, James, who lives and works and was raised in the Lake District, and they raise sheep. And I picked it up really because I love the cover and I love visiting England in non-plague times, but I've never visited the lakes yet. And there is a YouTuber that I follow. She's called Athena Meller, and she I think a year or two ago she moved to the vicinity of the Lake District. She lives in the Fells, and she just makes beautiful videos about hiking there and life in the Fells. And of course there are lots of sheep. So weird that sheep and sheep is both the singular and the plural form of the word. It confuses me to no end. But he writes about his life, and it's told in it moves through the seasons, which is really nice. So it's cyclical, but he also tells about all these different things that happen to him or his father or his grandfather. So the it's not chronological in a way, but it also is, because all the stories are ordered in a seasonal way, and it's lovely reading. But he wrote a thing that really struck me, and I think, before I tell you what it is, I think it struck me because I teach at a high school, I teach English, and we of course spend a lot of time with literature, and most of my kids don't like reading. It's a phenomenon that's of all times, I think. But sometimes you give them a book and they read about themselves in a way that they hadn't thought about before. And I think that's just special. And representation matters, right? Whether it's in media, in ads, in TV shows, in novels, but seeing someone like yourself doing something that you didn't think was possible, that's so powerful. And that is what James writes about as well. So he read A Shepherd's Life by W.H. Hudson, which is obviously where he got his title from, and he says the following. I'm just going to read it for you. A couple sentences, bear with me. Until I read this book, I thought books were always about other people, other places, other lives. This book, in all its glory, was about us, or at least the old Wiltshire version of us. And I think it's lovely that he found something that he could relate to. And it also reminds me of the TED Talk by, what's her name? It's called The Danger of a Single Story by an author, and her last name is, oh, I know, Chimamanda Adichie. She is a writer, and she did a TED talk about the danger of a single story, which is really a one-sided perspective of things. And I think it's 18 minutes. If you have 18 minutes to spare, go watch it. I'll link it down below because it's a lovely TED talk. Yeah, so if you want to read about a shepherd's life, I would highly recommend The Shepherd's Life, and the love that these shepherds have for their country and the land that they work on and the sheep that they care for and the dogs, and you know, it's really lovely to read. Alright, so if you are in luck, or if I'm in luck, I will add some footage of my grandmother wearing or fitting the Winslow culottes, or maybe not, we'll see. I don't believe in just putting people on YouTube without their consent, because consent matters. And hopefully I will see you in 2 or 3 weeks, and I will have more news on the superwash, hopefully not disaster. I have been thinking about doing a studio tour, but because we've been going through a house renovation, my studio has not been that organized, let's say. And I'm all for showing you, you know, the daily realities, but this is not a daily reality. This is a renovation reality that doesn't need to be seen on the internet. If you liked this episode, I would love it if you give it a like, and you can subscribe and click the bell icon so that you get a notification when my new episode goes out. If you have any recommendations for a t-shirt pattern for my lovely cotton and wool yarn, please drop them down below. Yeah, so that's it from me. I hope to welcome you back in the studio soon, and I hope that you have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Who says bye like that? I don't know. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.